Hello and welcome to another edition of LEAP's Regional Resiliency Report. This month, we'll talk with Dale Copedge of the Lansing chapter of the NAACP, Laura Sigmon of Best Practices Consulting, and Sein Benavides of Cafecito, Caliente about diversity, equity, and inclusion and why these are important considerations in economic development and business development. But first, we'll hear a welcome message from LEAP President and CEO, Bob Trezise.
Hi, everybody. Well, welcome again to LEAP's monthly video clip. This today, I think, is an especially important issue that we're addressing, which is diversity, equity, and inclusion. You're going to hear from a number of important leaders from our community, and you're going to hear the different programs and things that LEAP is trying to create to continue to address the issue of inequality in our society that has been going on for centuries. By the way, with regard to that, this book, Cast by Isabel Wilkerson, is an absolutely remarkable book. No matter who you are or how enlightened you think you are, like me, you will really have your eyes opened up even further about the systemic nature of this issue. But beyond that, there's economic development. And our board of directors, our executive committee, our staff here at LEAP are absolutely committed in a sustainable way to making sure that everyone in our society is fully engaged with our economy as well as our society. So let's talk about it. Let's get some different viewpoints. And thanks a lot today for participating in our LEAP video.
This first question is super easy. I'm just going to have each of you introduce yourself, talk a little bit about your background, and yeah, I don't know who wants to start.
Again, thank you, as I had mentioned before, for allowing me to participate in this discussion. And I hope it enlightens someone to make a difference in this arena concerning economic development. I am a retired state of Michigan senior environmental engineer. I worked in the Department of Environmental Quality, and I have experience in several environmental permitting programs that regulate discharges from businesses. I also worked in the energy office with the MEDC back in the day, and that was within LARA. I was elected 4 terms as an Ingham County Commissioner. I served on the Michigan Works Advisory Board. I was on the Ingham County Land Bank Authority for 8 years, both of those entities. And I'm currently president of the Lansing Branch NAACP. This is the National Association for Advancement of Colored People. And we have a strong interest when it comes to economic development. And in fact, one of our 6 game changers is economic development.
I'm Laura Sigmon. I'm the principal at Best Practices Consulting Services. I like to always tell people that I'm a refugee entrepreneur. I never wanted to leave corporate America. I loved all of the benefits. I really loved having minions at my disposal. And I became the minion in 2008 when the economic downturn actually hit FedEx, and I was offered an opportunity to seek freedom. So long story short, Best Practices Consulting Services now is in our 13th year doing economic development through technical assistance with municipalities and city governments and agencies who want to see elevated standards of business sustainability. So we do capacity building in the city of Flint, in the city of Detroit. We're doing some projects in Lansing. We're doing a little work in Inkster. We're looking at Baltimore, Gary, Indiana, and Buffalo, New York. Just really excited about having an opportunity to participate in this type of forum and talk about the type of work that we actually do, simply because when government and municipalities have a more sympathetic ear to people who don't have the same access to resources, I find that the recipients are the true benefactors of this type of equitable work. And I can't wait to get into the questions between equity, justice, and equality. I think we're really going to have a little bit of time to discuss those.
My name is St. Paul Benavides, and I am born and raised in Lansing, but my parents were born and raised in South Texas, and they worked in the migrant fields. They moved to Michigan wanting a better life. Out of probably about a dozen, 12, 15 family members that came up, they were the only ones who stayed. The rest went back to the fields. For me, I've spent almost 35 years working for the Postal Service, so I've got some time in there. But I've watched my parents do a lot of community work, which I can kind of blame them to a degree, that they're the ones that gave me the idea that if you had a chance to help somebody else, you should. It's that simple. So with that being said, I had a lot of ideas. I created a group called Cafecito, Caliente, which stands for hot coffee in English. So under that idea, we've developed events. And in fact, we just put out a fundraiser this morning for another organization. So how rare is that for one organization to create a fundraiser for another organization? So this is the second time we've done this. It's been a fun life. I've enjoyed what I do. The postal work has been enjoyable. It's treated my family well, but it's the community that drives me. So I believe me, I'm more than honored to be part of this, and especially with Laura and Dale. I've heard your names through the community, so I'm excited to once again listen to your ideas and your wisdom. So definitely blessed.
Yeah, I'm really excited to be speaking with all of you guys about this. I think it is going to be a really interesting conversation. So LEAP, as you guys are probably aware, recently unveiled our new Department of Equitable Economic Planning, or DEEP, which aims to increase our commitment to the strategic prioritization of equity in all our regional economic development efforts. So equity and inclusion has always been something we've tried to prioritize in our work at LEAP, but DEEP is really an opportunity to formalize that commitment and increase capacity behind making that a true priority, and a really strategic one in terms of all of our goal setting. So to start off, how would you define equity, and why is it an important consideration in economic and business development?
I used to really struggle with the definition or understanding the difference between equity and equality, and until I started to really touch this work on a very intimate level. When we're looking at resource allocation, we make a lot of assumptions that, hey, here's a PPP loan. If you're a small business, apply, right? This is intended for people who have employees of 500 or less. We can get really confused with the understanding in the translation. We get really lost in the translation. But if we don't understand eradication of barriers or true access to resources, having the capacity to be in a banking relationship, equity by itself, all by itself, lets us understand that getting across the river or across the road means that if I don't have a boat, if I don't have a cart, if I don't have telling me that I can get to the promised land without giving me what I really need to get there, there is no even playing field. So that's my explanation of what equity is, because I live it, I see it every day. You can have technical assistance, but you need to have a 700 credit score. You can have technical assistance to get this microloan, but you need to have had, at least some money in the bank so that we can have some collateral or access. Oh, you don't own a home? Oh, you don't have, there are a lot of things that I think help us to understand that we are still learning. And I think the definition will become more evolved as people are more sympathetic to what equity really is.
Really appreciate what Laura has said, because it pretty much targets the same thing approach that I have, or the NAACP. You think of the definition and you say justice according to the right, specifically, or freedom from bias or favoritism, to ensure that income and opportunities are evenly distributed in the communities. And that definition, people hear it, and it's supposed to really means something when it's very seldom practiced. More adaptively to communities of color, I would say the capacity of African Americans and other underserved communities to achieve financial, economic education, individual and community asset building initiatives, diversity, inclusion, and business hiring, career advancement and procurement, and achieving equal access to financial banking practices. That is a huge gap because, like Laura was saying, you know, the 700 score that you need. Do you have any assets? And sometimes, you know, when others that they have, let's say a family business that's been in existing for 60 something years, and they have strong equity and a good background in it. The person that's coming in, let's say if the CEO passed away and is coming to his son has no experience in that area, nothing. He's granted a lot of financial opportunities just because of the longevity of his company and the past history of the company. You can have the same thing with a minority business, and it's more challenging. Not only that, but you know, some of the government programs that are out there that we've worked on recently, and I really appreciate, want to say this, LEAP, allowing us to participate in the rollout of some of those COVID-19 relief grants, because it really made a huge difference in our community. I think it's important that we understand that these are true barriers out there. And when you look at these things and you go in for a loan, they have a spreadsheet of what you meet. You meet A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Okay, you're good. And then when it's a person of color, and let's just be real about this, you know, when they look at a person of color, if it's a Latino, if it's African American, if it's an Arab or whatnot, they look at them more scrutinizing. And that list that stopped at G goes all the way to Z now. And so they have these kinds of challenges that are impairing their ability to make their business work. Now, the why, you know, why is it important? It's good, basically, I think, for targeting upskilling for a diverse workforce. Also strengthens communities when you have businesses that normally would not be there.
I love all the words that have been spoken. The idea of a level playing field. You know, the analogy of having the boat, not having it. You know, I was actually thinking along the lines of having a license to drive. You know, many of us grew up, especially this generation, the last 30 years, you know, people watching reality TV shows, homes of the rich and famous. So you sat back and you watched television and you dreamed of running your own businesses. And for many people, it's just a dream. And for many, it's just talk. Many years ago, starting like in 2012, I started going around visiting the businesses, Latino-owned businesses. There's over 150 in the area. Who knew? There are about 35 Mexican restaurants in the area, Greater Lansing. And many of them just don't look at outside resources, period. They don't consider banks. They don't consider loans from any kind of financial institution, grants. They're out of reach. For a young person, whether they be 10 years old, 20 years old, 30 years old, they've got to be able to know that they can walk away from college along with a $50,000, $100,000 student loan. They've got to be able to know that it's possible to actually achieve, whether it be a professional position, skill jobs, a business. They've got to be able to have that dream. And in light of everything that's gone on, whether it be in the country or even just in the city, those dreams, they take a hit every time you try to cross the street. Every time you try to enter into a bank, anything, sitting down and looking at, one thing I noticed with LEAP last summer was when I sat down with people and we looked at the website, even though potentially they had a chance to really enhance their business with these grants, many of them had not even looked at the website. I got a chance to ask, well, most of them, why? And the answer that I got most of the time was, we weren't sure if we would understand it. And I guess with that being said, again, the hope just isn't there. They already believe they've been beaten. So in terms of the level playing field, I guess my thought is that, is it possible? Sure. But I think it's more critical than we believe.
The things that you mentioned, and I want to kind of give an example to spread, to open that up. And that's when you said not going to banks, they use their own ways to finance and to make things work in their businesses. I have one of my best friends, and it's amazing. Usually your best friends are when you're in college. And he was from Rochester, New York. Their family owned the second largest Black radio station in the nation. One of the things that they did with other businesses, people of color, most other African-American businesses, is that they pooled their money and when they pulled a loan or were able to show certain assets, when they did a loan, they would pull money to make the payment when the other business was short. So it was just like passing the hat to keep that business going. And they did that for years and years and years. And then by the time they established their businesses, they no longer had to do that. But they still were in support of each other to keep their businesses thriving. And back in that day, I was in college in '75, so it kind of shows you my age a little bit. But you're thinking his parents, even more so back in the '50s, when they were taking on these types of adventures. The availability for loans for monetary assets really wasn't there for minority businesses. These are the things that are important to understand, is that there are inequities. And if you remove those inequities, it can really improve the communities. And we need to enlighten our folks, because like your community saying, there are a lot of African-American businesses that didn't even pursue these COVID grants because they had been denied. And a lot of times people don't like being denied or being rejected. And that's a stigma that we need to get our businesses to bridge in order to keep their businesses going.
May I interject? There are so many things in this discussion, I think, could become subsets of different conversations. But I like to look at it because as a practitioner, I can tell you, I had a client who's about 8 million in sales. And she has a business relationship that's transactional. But no, they've never given her a loan. No, they've given her nothing but high interest credit cards. She happened to have found a really nice niche in cognitive therapy, something that she worked in her years. She doesn't have a solidified education like a therapist or scientist of some sort, but she was able to identify a need in the market, serving seniors who needed cognitive therapy and ongoing support. Why are we not rewarding people who have figured out how to actually be a help? When we talk about economic development, you don't get to 8 million without making employees. You don't get to 8 million without, contributing to a local economy. But all you see is the fact that she doesn't have a loan, she doesn't have a formal education, and she has a high interest credit card, so therefore she's not a qualified candidate for your institution. That's the conversation that has to be on the table when we talk about equity and equality, right? So that's one person. I interviewed this week 42 individuals who are all what we call scratching the surface of being an entrepreneur. And if I were anyone else, they'd be in trouble because none of them have serve-safe licenses. They don't have a licensed commercial kitchen. They don't have legal registrations. They don't have the EINs. They do business on this device because the smart technology has made it real easy for them to do it. They're braiding hair, installing eyelashes, making clothes, selling food, and we are penalizing them for trying to grab the American dream because they don't participate the way others deem they should. See, we need to meet them where they are. That needs to be the real conversation. They've already done the hard work. Everything else we do should be to shore it up, to wrap services around them, make them sustainable, so that we can then start to talk about what is equity and is it equitable. That is where I really believe we need to take that conversation.
Yeah, I think what's been interesting in hearing all of you guys talk is how quickly, when you try to focus on one aspect of something like a conversation around equity, how quickly it really unravels and expands to show how deep rooted the systemic inequality is baked into all aspects of everything. So you can't really talk about inequities in economic development without talking about social inequity, without talking about language barriers, without talking about financing barriers. It's difficult to talk about one thing without talking about everything. So you have all touched on a lot of really important things. And one thing I think we want to be especially intentional about when we look at the work of DEEP. This is a foundational year, so it's really starting to structure what this is going to look like. And I think where a lot of equity initiatives can kind of stumble a bit is in coming into communities that we know face systemic barriers and telling them what they need, instead of just kind of shutting up and listening. So again, I know it's difficult because this is so complex and multi-layered and there's no way to cover it sufficiently in a short video. But when you think about the most urgent priorities that come with addressing the systemic inequality, especially within economic development and business development, what are some of the things that you think are most important to focus on, even if it's just as a first step?
I like to actually expound upon what it is that I see in the marketplace. If I need a business license and I've just paid this landlord to come and get this commercial building, and I've taken all the money that I've scratched for a whole year to get it right, and I can't get the certificate of occupancy because I didn't recognize that I didn't need to just go to one department, I needed to go to 5 different departments. I don't know this, and you know I don't know it, and you haven't made the roadmap real easy. Why not actually hold my hand and walk me through this process? Don't penalize me. Don't penalize me. Don't come to fine. Don't come to, ticket me. Make it so that it's a friendly environment. If you really mean what you say about having me participate, if you want the resource allocation to be justified, then say to me, well, that really does require, you need the smoke alarm, you don't have the right ventilation. We're going to give you a 90-day plan. And then if you don't have the right plan, here's a mentor who can help you sort of get to where you're actually going. Because entrepreneurs in general don't ask for a lot of help. They see something, they seize it, and they run for it. If they don't have a trusted network, they're not going to go beyond that network to do what needs to be done. There are so many people who are probably operating as braiders, and they don't even know that the laws have changed, that you now need to have a natural culturist license to do hair. But it's something they've been doing for 20 years, right? And all of a sudden regulatory compliance has changed, and it could absolutely put me out of business because that means I need to go back to school for a cosmetology degree, or I have to go back to school and pay somebody for something that I've been doing for 20 years. Mm-hmm. That's a different discussion. That's really a different discussion. I've been cooking grandma's pies for however long, whatever. And now I'm selling them. I'm doing pop-ups. Oh, I didn't know Cottage Kitchen Law has a $2,000, cap. And once I've gotten past that, I now need to have a commercial kitchen. I need packaging. I need labeling. I need I got so much stuff you want me to do, and I don't even understand how to participate in that world. We need to absolutely have some forbearance. We need to have some kindness around the space of they don't know how other people participate in the ecosystem. What they understand is that they have something they can take to market. Give them a 6-month, let's get you right type of wraparound. 6 months, you've done the hard work. 6 months, we'll fight and advocate and remove some of the barriers. I'll give you really quickly. In Flint, we were able to go to underserved communities where there were people who probably made all the same mistakes, but they had the wealth of pocket to right the wrongs, minorities and such. And, you want to help the whole world, but you can only sustain so many, right? Mm-hmm. We were able to bridge the gap by asking them to do what we call economic gardening. Let us lease your space because you have the license already. Let us lease your space on your slower day. And 3 or 4 of us are getting here in this restaurant, and we'll make it on Tuesdays, our day of restaurant. And maybe you can mentor me and show me your supply chain opportunity, how you actually create your inventory controls and set your pricing, how you actually market. The opportunities and techniques already exist because before there was this new technology, that's how it was done anyway. Someone showed you, you practice on somebody else. Now let's do the same thing for all those who are trying to come behind us. That's the process.
Yeah, when you get to those things, protection, consumer protection, taxation, all these drivers change when the individuals are trying to improve or actually get on the right track, like you're saying, people braiding hair, there's been individuals doing that for decades, and they do a heck of a job at it, and I will admit that I have family members that go and receive those services, or a few that do some of those things, and that's the whole piece of it is trying to provide the services to give them opportunity to flourish. It's important to empower communities, I think, with necessary education, which you're talking about resources. The resources are, I think, even more important than the education today in today's markets in some cases. How to figure ways to sustain and to learn how to operate a business. And like you said, they don't get a look. A lot of times they just don't get a look because when they come in the door, some folks don't prepare themselves with some of the soft skills, and that means how they're dressed and whatnot. Because usually once you come in there and you're not dressed appropriately, it becomes what do you want to call it? An exercise for them to go through the bullets because they have to provide you that service. Otherwise, there can be some legal repercussions to their business for not allowing you to participate in the process. But nevertheless, a lot of things are lost, and there's no thought of trying to get them to the point where you can provide the resources or direction. And the important piece of that, of trying to accomplish that, I think, is having people that look like you in that business. And if it's a banking institution, if it's, LEAP, I'm really glad to see how you guys have individuals and how you do your process there with individuals that look like me that I can talk with, and also provide services or opportunities for people in our community. We need to have these businesses and institutions to understand this. This is something that's real. This is an impairment to the community. I think providing these things make for a better community when you have people of color and other kinds of backgrounds, ethnicity incorporated in their business. And also redefining or reworking some of the structure that these businesses have. that allow or direct people to resources. That's a big one. That's a heck of a challenge that we need to overcome in order to get people to make a better community. And that's what we're trying to do, or I figure that we are working toward.
Mhm.
So I guess I look at it, the question, urgent priorities. I've had a hand in trying to keep our Hispanic Business Association alive, our Hispanic Chamber. I do believe I got the 2 of the 3 people I wanted to take over. So they are slowly developing it. As most businesses, anybody's been part of any kind of a business association, chamber, anywhere, knows that trying to get business owners and professionals to show up to a monthly meeting, the percentages aren't good. They just don't, especially the business owners, they don't have time. So I love going back to what Laura had pointed out, the fact that, we need to meet them where they're at. In terms of, and then jumping on what Dale just said, in terms of creating that structure, I mean, they have to have a starting point. One thought would be that almost maybe is a kind of a compromise is even if we could create, if let's say videos were created, hypothetically, if they were created so that, for example, whether it be a 4-minute clip, a 15-minute clip on how to start a business, maybe using a whiteboard and the business license, or the value of an LLC. How do you potentially add some type of benefits to the employees? Who knew that restaurants could actually offer benefits? Whether it be AFLAC or whatever the case may be. But that way, you're not dependent upon one catching a business owner or a potential business owner who has a job, because I've got to believe a lot of these people already have full-time jobs, and then they have a little bit of a side hustle, in building their boutique or whatever it may be on the side. So all of a sudden they're working 60, 70 hours. To ask them to go to class to learn these things, to ask them to step into a building where they have to sign for this or apply for that, time just isn't on their side. We need something that, and like Dale said, something that looks like them, something they can access when they have the time, something that they can relate to in their terminology that guides them from wherever they're at.
I think you make a very valid point. There's something else that I think is really significant. We need to think about the sales cycles of the smaller business, right? We have a huge initiative. We've got the Michigan Economic Development Corporation, who tries to drive a lot of change. They have a lot of initiatives when you can hire 50 employees. When you can hire 50 employees, what must your sales cycle look like? What does your revenue forecast need to look like? Do you know that an infusion of cash of less than $30,000 automatically stimulates a micro business to hire someone else because they can't handle the workload? Imagine what a 6-figure, $100,000 brand new infusion of business, not loans. See, because I'm a little adverse of asking for capital when you don't know how to use it. Mm-hmm. But having $100,000 of new business opportunities is a huge method of really empowering a group of people, because it's just me. What am I going to do? How many clients do I need to serve? How many units of service is that? I need to find people. I need to help. I need help. We need to change our focus so that we can look at small implemental changes could impact Main Street business, right? The local little restaurateur, the local little boutique owner, the local tax company, the local construction fella or woman, people. There are opportunities if we change our focus You can't start off at the state level going, if you hire 50 employees or better, we've got products for you. Main Street America is what fuels our economy. An extra 2 million or 5 million or 8 million will not even really increase their employee count by much. Where 30,000 will automatically force me to hire at least one person part-time. 100,000 can get me to another person full-time. You can make real impact if you look at it that way. Be intentional.
Mhm.
Be absolutely intentional about what it is that you do. Now is the time. The season is before us. We're no longer need to concern ourselves with the general overview or perception of political correctness. We need to abolish that, and we need to simply just say, hey, we have to do it the way they do it, and ward off intentionally barriers that will limit and hinder them from all businesses, Black, white, green, purple, women, Hispanic, it doesn't matter. If we're participating in the ecosystem and we're making America what it really is, then support us.
I echo those same sentiments. When you remove barriers, it provides opportunity, and that opportunity is crucial to success. And I think the average person, more than the average person, wants to believe or work in a minimal means for racial equality. I do believe that.
An old expression I used to use is to, whether it come from LEAP or from individuals that become mentors, there's a lot of influencers out there. We're all influenced by someone, whether it be another business owner, somebody we watch on television or so, somebody that inspires us. Could be an aunt, an uncle, the neighbor, but we can never obviously lose sight of who we are, how we got here. And that, I remember I used to say this to myself. I read it somewhere, and that was, you always play within the rules of the game. But reality is, you still play by your own rules. You don't change that, because that's what's got you this far. So just a thought. I mean, I think that's just something we need to encourage those we come in contact with, and the amount of people and businesses that LEAP will end up reaching out to.
Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you here next month on LEAP's Regional Resiliency Report.